Welcome everyone. This is the account with a short summary for day 404 of the war in Ukraine. Thank you for joining me. I did not have time to research the flashpoints along the front today, so I will be skipping that segment. Also, I will be focusing on the most important headlines today. I still grouped them into the usual situation inside Ukraine, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, and international developments. To start the news segment, the updates on the assassination of Vladlen Tatarsky. The investigative committee of the Russian Federation reported that Daria Trepova, a suspect in the murder of Russian propagandist Vladlen Tatarsky, has been detained in St. Petersburg. Meanwhile, journalist Roman Popkov, who was accused by Telegram channels of allegedly being an accomplice in the murder, denied his involvement. Russia's National Anti-Terrorist Committee has accused Ukrainian secret services and supporters of Alexei Navalny's anti-corruption foundation of the murder. Russian President Vladimir Putin has posthumously awarded Vladlen Tatarsky with the Order of Courage. According to Russian media, at least 30 people have been injured in the explosion. And look at all the minor updates out of Ukraine. The President's Office of Ukraine and Alexander Syrsky, commander of the ground forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, have both dismissed the claims by Russian propagandists that the city of Bakhmut had been captured. Robert Habeck, the German Vice Chancellor and Minister of Economy, has arrived in Ukraine for political talks. According to Alexander Tkachenko, Ukraine's Minister of Culture, some civilians on the premises of the Kyiv-Pechersk Lavra are there illegally. Next up, the latest regarding the situation in the occupied territories. A car explosion in temporarily occupied Melitopol in the morning injured collaborator Maxim Zubarev. The National Resistance Center reported that Russia is expected to open propaganda centers for de-Ukrainization in Russian-occupied parts of Zaporizhia Oblast. Moving on to the news update from Russia and Belarus. The Russian military has issued a memo to soldiers being sent to Ukraine, most of which is devoted to ideological justification for the war. The memo, for example, asserts they are convinced that the US has decided to destabilize Russia, faced with a deficit of resources. Accordingly, the United States wanted to suck all the juice out of Russia. Russia announced that this year's victory parade on May 9th will proceed as planned. The team of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny showed pictures allegedly taken in the settlement of Krasnaya Polyana near the city of Sochi. It is known that Russian President Vladimir Putin has a secret residence in the area. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. Rheinmetall, the largest German arms manufacturer, is building a maintenance center in Romania to service Western military equipment used by the armed forces of Ukraine. Poland has supplied Ukraine with several MiG-29 fighter jets already. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Poland on Wednesday, April 5th. Australia's Electro-Optic Systems, EOS, announced it had secured a conditional contract to supply remote weapon systems to Ukraine valued at about $80 million. According to Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, Finland will join NATO in the coming days. And now for the intelligence reports, starting with the UK Ministry of Defense. The Russian MOD is likely running a deliberate information operation to revive the reputation of a brigade which has become synonymous with recent Russian failures in Ukraine. Throughout March 2023, the activities of 155th Naval Infantry Brigade were highlighted via some of the most extensive Russian helmet cam combat footage yet released. A televised visit by a prominent Russian TV host, Vladimir Solovyov, public announcements that the formation is in high spirits with a strong determination to achieve the set goals, and images showing the 155th being re-equipped with modified tanks. In reality, the 155th has likely been reduced to combat ineffective status at least twice in the last 6 months due to being committed to tactically flawed frontal assaults near Vuhledar in Donetsk Oblast. The MOD's efforts to revive the brigade's image likely reflects concerns about the way in which its failures were being increasingly associated with Russian senior military leaders. And look at the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. Sadly, I did not have time to write a summary for the assessment, so I will be reading the headlines. ISW is publishing an abbreviated campaign update today, April 2nd. This report discusses the assassination of prominent pro-war Russian mill blogger Maxim Fomin, also known as Vladlen Tatarsky, in St. Petersburg on April 2nd. Fomin was one of the most significant Russian mill bloggers with a Telegram platform of 560,000 followers and a deep connection with the Wagner Group, the Kremlin, the Donetsk People's Republic, DNR, and the Russian nationalists who have been dominating the Russian information space since the start of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Fomin's assassination at a Wagner-affiliated bar in St. Petersburg may reveal further fractures within the Kremlin and its inner circle. Fomin was a vocal critic of the Russian military command and the Russian Ministry of Defense, MOD. Fomin's death marks the first high-profile assassination of an ultra-nationalist mill blogger in Russia since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Unknown actors killed Russian mill blogger Maxim Fomin in a deliberate and targeted attack during an event in a St. Petersburg bar reportedly belonging to Wagner Group financier Yevgeny Prigozhin on April 2nd. Russian officials and propagandists have accused Ukraine of staging a terrorist attack to assassinate Fomin. Fomin was a prominent figure in the Russian pro-war nationalist information space, although not more so than some others. Fomin's assassination at Prigozhin's bar is likely part of a larger pattern of escalating Russian internal conflicts involving Prigozhin and Wagner. Russian officials may be intending to use Fomin's assassination to drive the self-censorship of a growing Russian civil society questioning the progress of the war in bars. The assassination is already deepening a divide within the Russian mill blogger space, which may ultimately be beneficial to the Kremlin's efforts to consolidate control of the information space. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The enemy continues to focus its main efforts on conducting offensive actions in the Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka directions. Thanks to the coordinated actions of units of the defense forces of Ukraine and the heroism of each soldier, more than 45 enemy attacks were repelled during the day. Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka remain at the epicenter of hostilities. In the Liman direction, during the day, the enemy conducted unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of Nevske and Serebryansk forest. In the direction of Bakhmut, the enemy is trying to take full control of the city of Bakhmut and continues to storm it. The enemy led unsuccessful offensive actions near the settlements of Orikhovo, Vasilivka and Ivanivske. During the day, units of the defense forces repelled about 20 enemy attacks on the specified section of the battle line. In the Avdiivka and Marinka directions, the enemy carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of Siverne, Pervomaiske and Marinka. During the day, the enemy did not conduct offensive operations in the Shakhtarsk direction. In the Zaporizhia and Kherson direction, the enemy did not conduct active operations but increased its defensive capabilities. In the Skadovsk district of the Kherson Oblast, the so-called Russian occupation authorities have started compiling lists of local residents who agreed to evacuate to Crimea or the territory of the Russian Federation. It is known that the evacuation will be carried out on a voluntary basis for the time being. Primarily, women and children will be taken out. And that concludes today's short report. Should you be interested in details, you can find links to every article I mentioned in the description. If you enjoyed the report and found it informative, please consider sharing it with others and giving me a like. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. I hope you will join me again tomorrow. You are listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.